Yeah, this is a really great question, and it's something that I actually work with many of my clients who are just starting out on a new nutrition program. It's really a reprogramming of the way we need to see food, and one of the fastest ways to do that is to have meal prep. I like to actually advise the clients prep their meals a week in advance. So maybe spend a Sunday afternoon making sure that all the meals are ready. So on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they know exactly what they're going to eat at what time. And what this does is it alleviates the pressure of having to choose what to eat in order to choose a healthy food or something that's actually going to support their healing process. And then also it prevents them from having to worry about somebody preparing something for them if by some chance they get a little weak or they're fatigued or maybe they're not conscious enough. If they're able to set an alarm on their phone that reminds them, hey, it's time to eat meal number one, meal number two, and everything's labeled in the refrigerator, it makes for easy grab and go, takes a lot of the pressure off. I love this question. It's a really tricky question because what they're finding with people who have Alzheimer's and dementia is actually an issue with the balance of fats. And so while we tend to be afraid and tend to steer clear of the typical saturated fats, the one saturated fat that is actually really good for us is coconut oil. It's one of my favorites, and it's made from medium chain triglycerides. And so the medium chain triglycerides actually help to combat the stress hormones in the body. So whereas we normally tend to stay away from saturated fat because it may boost the cortisol, we can have coconut oil and it'll not only help to decrease the cortisol, but it also helps us to burn the body fat, the dangerous body fat that's around the organs. So I'm a huge fan of coconut oil. If you can find it, grass-fed organic butter is a better alternative than standard butter and of course better than margarine. And I always recommend that if you're going to use olive oil for anything, do not cook with it, mainly because olive oil will become carcinogenic, which means it becomes toxic when you actually heat it up. So if you're going to consume olive oil, please make sure that it is raw. Mm. It's a good question too. I find that when we're looking at toxins and we're looking at trying to boost foods, a lot of times we end up trying to eat a lot of more cruciferous and roughage foods. So a lot of times these foods have a lot of high fiber and they may require a lot more chewing. So I'm a huge fan with a massive handful of greens, and this will prevent the need for chewing. So it's easy consumption. It's an easy grab and go meal. And this allows me to help my clients actually get those greens into their diet without having to chew it for long periods of time. Another thing that people can do also is high quality green powders are really helpful to be able to get in the required nutrients that the body needs to help clarify all the cells and the toxins from the cells. So high quality green powders are huge when making smoothies and things like that. And raw veggies are a little bit challenging. So if you can cook them to a point where they're easy to chew, it would be great. Obviously, sometimes when we overcook a vegetable, it tends to lose its nutrients. But, there is hope because, things like broccoli actually will release more of their nutrients like calcium when they have been cooked or processed. And so will tomatoes. When tomatoes have been cooked and processed, they release things like lycopene and lutein to help the brain, to help the circulation, and to help the eyes. So, don't be afraid to process certain foods, but my go-to is always a high-powered blender. Two things: exercise and meditation. And these are things that a lot of people have a tendency to steer clear of. When certain people get to a certain age, it's almost interesting where they start to convince themselves, oh, I should start to slow down. Oh, I should start to relax more. And it's quite the contrary because as we start to age, we lose a half a pound of muscle minimum per year. And if we don't do exercise such as weight bearing exercise, even yoga would be okay for this to jolt the body into keeping that muscle. we're just going to keep losing and losing and losing. So we lose strength, we lose balance, and that lack of circulation to the brain is actually going to create more fogginess. So I'm a huge proponent of daily exercise, even if it's just a 20-minute walk a day. The next thing is definitely meditation or some sort of mindfulness practice. And this doesn't have to be anything complicated. It could be literally just you focusing on the pace of your breath, literally just sitting comfortably in a chair and focusing on the rise and fall of your breath. That can be a meditation. You can find plenty of guided meditations online. There are lots of services, plenty of videos on YouTube that will actually teach you or just guide you through a meditation. And by doing this, they're finding that even a minimum of 10 minutes a day is decreasing ADD, it's decreasing dementia and Alzheimer's and all of the mental illnesses that we're struggling with right now. By just bringing ourselves back centered into this moment, this present moment, we're finding that we're able to overcome a lot of these mental illnesses. Absolutely. Now, our gut is actually filled with good and bad bacteria. And so a lot of times when we hear the word bacteria, we automatically cringe. It's like, oh my gosh, I've got to kill it. So when we go to the doctors, if we get sick, we have a tendency to take antibiotics. And the doctors will dose us up with antibiotics, but those antibiotics will kill the good and bad bacteria. So when we're trying to rebuild that gut bacteria, we're kind of behind the eight ball. And so we're now prone to things like candida, we're prone to yeast infections, and these things because we've killed off even the good bacteria. Gut bacteria is also impacted by stress. It's also impacted by specific foods that are toxic to our bioindividuality. And what that means is our DNA and our cultures will determine the types of foods that our body is going to like or dislike. So many people have gluten intolerance or celiac disease. Many people are allergic to milk. Some people are allergic to fruits and vegetables. And there's a lot of issues now because of the Monsanto issue with GMOs and a lot of toxic chemicals that are being used to prevent bugs from eating the food. And these things are getting into our system. That is also decreasing our gut's ability to be able to process food. So if my body, for instance, it doesn't do well with grains and I continue to consume grains, if I've continued over the course of my life to eat a lot of sugar, to eat or to take a lot of antibiotics and to eat a lot of non-GMO foods or to eat a lot of GMO foods, what will happen is my bacteria in my gut is all out of balance. I have a boosted amount of yeast in my body, which is not good, and that creates inflammation in the body. So all of those things are actually just linked directly to the gut. A lot of times people also who have respiratory issues don't realize that it's directly related to the gut. When the gut is happy, the lungs will be happy, the brain will be happy. So it's in relation to how we treat our body through diet. If we're choosing organics, if we're choosing more dark green leafy vegetables to decrease the toxins in the body and to help with circulation, if we're choosing a variety of fruits and vegetables rather than just sticking to one color, and if we're choosing the types of water that we're consuming and the types of fluids that we're consuming, really rather than just choosing it based on taste or based on brand recognition, we're choosing it based on what's in my body's highest good. That will help us to balance back out the good bacteria. And another way that we can also do it is because over the course of time, as our bodies age, our natural enzyme levels will start to decrease. And so as we age, we need to boost our enzyme intake. So boosting with natural enzymes and boosting with natural probiotics such as yogurt, kefir, things like that, and even fermented foods like kimchi or sauerkraut will also help to reestablish that good gut bacteria. But as soon as we're able to do that through diet and proper supplementation, we're going to notice not only shifts in the inflammation throughout our body and our joints, but we're also going to notice that the mental fogginess and respiratory issues that we've been having start to diminish. Baby steps. That's the first thing I have to say, baby steps. So many of us are, especially in America, we're in this quick fix mentality. We want results immediately, and we're not willing to wait. So a lot of times, what we'll do is we'll take drastic measures on the very beginning of our journey, and a couple weeks in, we completely give up because we've sent ourselves into shock. So it's really important that you understand that baby steps are an absolute essential process to creating a diet, a new diet and lifestyle that is suitable for your healing and overcoming of mental obstacles. And these baby steps can be something as simple as adding one new green leafy vegetable to your daily diet each day, and making sure that you're consuming just really good quality purified water with a little bit of pink salt. The tiny little steps like that are going to make a world of difference. That's a tough question, being especially because I had depression myself and I battled it for many years. And one of the things that I found with myself and with the clients that I've worked with is there's a massive fear of being judged. If I bring this issue to the forefront, if I tell somebody, will they use it against me? Will they judge me for being in this situation? And my advice would be literally to A, find somebody that you trust, whether it be a doctor and you know that there's going to be confidentiality, or you have that one friend who will just accept you no matter what. You've got to get to the point where you can trust at least one person with this information, even if it's just trusting yourself. And if you don't want to tell somebody, there's a ton of research online to be able to understand, medical and alternative methods for healing and dealing with these types of issues. When I got diagnosed by a third different doctor to go on Prozac, what I actually found was through my research online, I realized I had a magnesium deficiency. And once I was able to start working with boosting the magnesium back up in my body, my cravings for milk diminished. So I stopped drinking milk. I immediately dropped 10 pounds and the mental fog started to dissipate. So there's so much information online that you can at least start the ball rolling if you're not comfortable in trusting somebody else. But you've got to get over the fear of being judged in your own heart. And rather than judging yourself, be open enough to say, okay, you know what? Something's not right, but I'm willing to accept that something's not right in order for me to grow and change and be able to fix it, or to be able to resolve it, or to be able to make a self-honoring choice to nurture myself in a different way. And by doing that, you're gonna find that healing is much more graceful process because you're allowing yourself to just be present with exactly what's going on.